Hi everyone, it's Tom with the LEC recap of this week. We just closed out week 4 of the LEC, which is the halfway point of the regular split, so all the teams have played each other one time right now. So as usual, let's get into some recaps, point out the highlights of the matches and share some interesting clips. We kicked off with Schalke 04 versus Astralis, and obviously heading into the match, as you may have seen in my prediction video, or my preview video rather, Schalke 04 was probably a bit favored because Astralis had not been performing well, and Schalke 04 was on a 4-game win streak. And Astralis obviously had a new mid laner, with Noobdog stepping back for personal reasons. Maggie Felix came in as for his LEC debut as main part of a team, and immediately already, he left his mark on the match by picking Corki, which is definitely a comfort pick for him. Schalke 04, on their hand, picked Irelia on Broken Blade because he was playing into the Gnar. And, Astralis kicked off actually very well. They got more kills on Schalke 04, and they looked very good. I don't really know what was going on in Schalke 04. Obviously, as a team, you are going to have these moments where you have a little bit of a dip, and this is probably one of them for them. With Schalke 04 actually being overconfident. I think they felt too comfortable playing against Astralis, and it almost seems like they didn't respect them enough when it came to their play. Astralis, on their hand, as I've said in my recap and my preview videos for weeks right now, they've been making small steps of progress every week after the first pretty disastrous week. And although the steps were very small, eventually they're going to get to a point where they're going to put on consistent, decent performances. And this is exactly what they did against Schalke 04. They used their lead well. They chose their fights very well to pressure Schalke 04 off the map. They had good coordinated plays, and individually the players were playing well as well. And I guess the highlight for me in this game was absolutely the debutante on the roster. It was Maggie Felix, who in a Corki 1v2 pulled off something pretty incredible.
Against a Baron in a minute to mount.
Maggie Felix level 16. Endy has the package ready. He wants the 1v1.
Let's find out if he can get it. Maggie Felix steps forward. There's the teleport coming in. The target gets blown up. The force bomb into a big one.
Maggie Felix!
Maggie Felix with the double kill.
So yeah, Schalke 04 just did not have anything to say in this match, and I think this is a very good point for them to rethink about how they approached this game and how they approached this opponent in particular, because it seemed like they were a bit overconfident, and Astralis, to their credit, obviously played it very well and got their win. Then this was followed by Vitality versus XL, and whereas Schalke 04 versus Astralis had quite a few moments of excitement, Vitality versus XL did not. It was an incredibly boring, very slow game, with both teams being very scared to engage, and it seemed like there was just 1 minute or like 8 minutes into the game where both teams agreed on having some action, where like engages in the top lane and the bot lane almost simultaneously, but after this it felt dead again. And XL, I guess, was playing slightly better overall, but both teams were absolutely not performing at the top of their level. Obviously, Vitality had their new bot laner as well in Crownshot, but it seemed like he was yet not able to make an impact. And, I mean, with XL on a Cho'Gath, that's kind of like a scaling win condition, right? Eventually, he gets just so big that he just doesn't die and kills everything. He didn't really do much. It was just a huge meat shield, but he had a 6,000 health pool towards the end, and Vitality just couldn't burst through it. The game, as well as bad as it was during the game, it ended very badly because Vitality tried to get their Dragon Soul, and XL just said, okay, well, if you're going for the Dragon Soul, we can just end through the mid lane, which is exactly what they did, and XL won the game. Then the third match, we had Misfits versus G2. I guess Misfits obviously on a loss streak and hasn't been playing very well in recent weeks, so this was heavily G2 favored, and I think G2 noticed this, but similarly to Schalke, was maybe a bit too comfortable playing against Misfits, where things did kick off well for G2. Misfits had some strange objective picks that they decided to Resorg, try to steal a blue buff from G2 a few times, and this was heavily punished. And the communication from Misfits just seemed to be off, where Resorg should have known that G2 was collapsing on him, but he just didn't walk away. It was very strange. And G2 got like an early comfortable lead, and when they get this, especially against in team like Misfits, they're going to start fooling around a bit more, and they should have been punished quite a few times, actually. There was one time where Jankos was way overextended, and in my opinion, Misfits could easily have turned around, engaged, kill him, and from there on wipe out the rest of G2 who was following Jankos, but instead they let G2 just push them away from Jankos, and Jankos got to safety with a sliver of health remaining. It was an incredibly scrimmy game. It wasn't clean or anything like this. Not much to say about it other than, it wasn't a very structured match. It wasn't great play from either team, but Misfits in particular looked really bad in their game. And G2, in the end, they just have the individual power to outplay Misfits pretty easily, and they got their win. The fourth match we had with Mad versus Rogue. And Mad Lions versus Rogue obviously was a very hype matchup in the summer split, with both teams being on top of the standings for weeks on end. And being kind of the new kings, quote unquote, with G2 and Fnatic struggling then. But at the moment, Rogue was heavily favored against Mad Lions because Rogue had been sitting in the top for a few weeks already, playing very well. Whereas Mad Lions looked a bit more scrappy in their play and a bit more inconsistent in how they played each match. And I guess in this match, Mad Lions had another one of the scrappy games. Rogue took a pretty comfortable lead. They looked very comfortable in their play against Mad Lions. The usual suspects of people like Hansama in particular, who's looked incredible so far in this split, was feeling it, and he did go for a bit too flashy plays a few times, but in the end he recognized that he was very much in a position to be able to afford such plays, and Larsen was playing well, Inspired was playing well, so Rogue just on an individual basis overpowered Mad Lions, but also on a team fight basis. In the end, Mad Lions really did not have much to say in this game, and it's a bit sad to see, obviously, because that rivalry was very, very fun to watch in the summer split, but give Mad Lions maybe a bit more time to develop their roster with their new players, and maybe, who knows, in the future or in the rematch, even in the spring split, this match could be closer, but at the moment it definitely was not. The final match was between Fnatic and SK Gaming, and both teams were feeling the flashy picks a bit, with Whippo playing a Riven and Genox picking a Vladimir in the top lane. So we had a spicy top lane, and it was definitely Whippo's day. This guy just sometimes has these moments, these games, where he's completely feeling it, where he's completely like, okay, I'm in the zone, I'm in the matrix, so to speak. Whereas SK Gaming wasn't really, but it was mostly Whippo who dominated the game. He almost single-handedly carried Fnatic to their win. Obviously, his team helped in team fight and stuff like this, but for example, at 16 minutes, he was already at a level 11 and 6-0 in kills. Fnatic just used this advantage so well in their team fights. They recognized, okay, Whippo comes in with the damage, and then the other teammates follow up to make sure he gets out safely, or he gets away with the kills he's made, or they follow up on the kills. And SK Gaming couldn't really do much about it. They, with the Vladimir, obviously, who gets progressively better as the game goes on, they weren't able to do much in the 1v1 there, and all across the map as well. It wasn't very pretty. We saw Blue, who has not been a great mid laner so far in the split, but he was struggling again against Niski. And then in the bot lane, you had Treats, who is an incredible support player so far, one of the best support players actually in the league, in my opinion, at the moment. But even though Hylissang was, obviously he's going to be Hylissang, so sometimes he's just going to go for plays that are very questionable. But with the duo of Upset and him, they were also dominating in the bot lane. I think this was overall just a very clean match from Fnatic, where they showed that if this roster comes together and if they play the style that they're comfortable with now, which they're finding more and more, that they're absolutely one of the strongest teams in Europe. And they got a very comfortable victory. On the second day is where we had more fireworks. We had Vitality versus SK Gaming to kick it off, and to be fair, comparing to my previous statement, which I just said about fireworks, this wasn't really the game where this happened, where it was just not a great game overall. There was a pretty quiet game in the early game. Both teams were just laning without doing too much. Vitality got their first blood and they got their first Drake, which is obviously nice for them to see this early game advantage, but the game kept on dragging on. It wasn't really a super interesting moment. A catalyzing moment was, however, where Vitality tried to set up a Baron. They were trying to fight the Baron and maybe lure SK Gaming into the pit and then defeat them from there. But what happened actually was that Tinks with the Lilia landed a 3-man sleep from behind the Baron pit. He threw that little ball, and then Treats followed up with a Rakan knock-up, and then Genox followed up with a amazing Renekton play, just dealt so much damage there. And yeah, that's kind of where Vitality lost all control over the game. Still, Vitality got the Mountain Drake and they put themselves on Soul Point, which obviously is a good objective to get and maybe a win condition, because once you get the Mountain Soul, you are so much tankier. But SK was just cleaner overall in the game. I think another team fight, they won after this. They got the second Baron and they just ended the game. I wouldn't say that overall this was a very great game. Don't recommend rewatching it. Maybe the highlight of Genox is worth watching, but it's really the only thing that was really notable in the game. And other than that, it just was two struggling teams struggling against each other. So not incredibly impressive. Then we had Misfits versus Astralis. And yeah, I mean, Astralis coming off the back of a win and Misfits coming off the back of a loss. And I predicted Astralis to win because of that upward trend they'd be going on, and Misfits on a downward trend they'd be going on. But it was completely the other way around, where Misfits, I don't know what they did. Maybe they had a very solid plan of how to approach the game against Astralis or how to read this team. But Misfits was... The difference between them was night and day from Friday. Misfits took a very strong early lead. They had good fights. Astralis did mess up a few times where they tried to go for plays that they shouldn't go for, and Misfits punished that very well. 30 minutes into the game, Veteo, who was not playing Zoe, even though it was left open, if I recall correctly, but and Miss Veteo and Kobe were both at 3 kills already, so that was incredibly impressive. And honestly, this is kind of where it ended with that lead. Astralis just had nothing to say. They weren't proactive on the map, which is really sad to see because they played so well in their previous game, right? As I just mentioned, against Schalke 04, they played very well. Whereas against Misfits, they weren't being proactive. And when they showed signs of being proactive, they just got punished by Misfits very hard. And obviously, it's very refreshing to see Misfits getting this victory, because I do still think that this roster had so much potential after the first week. We saw Riot stepping up. We saw Veteo obviously just playing well on a Zoe. And afterwards he fell off a bit, but I still think that he could at least be like a decent mid laner, right? Which is all you need if all the other roles step up and all the other roles can, as they have shown. But obviously it's really good for them to get this win at the moment, which he eventually got, because they showed that they can be consistent and they can in their play in the game, obviously not in their results overall, but that they can be confident and play as a good team. And I hope for them at least that in this game they took the lesson of, okay, this is how we know how to feel comfortable. Then we had Schalke 04 versus Mad Lions, a match I was very excited about, because in the top lane we obviously had Broken Blade on the Schalke 04 side versus Armut, two top laners who became friends and kind of rivals in the Turkish league, in the TCL, and now was going to be the first time they play each other again in a league after Broken Blade had left for NA, and Armut stayed in the TCL until now, where he joined the LEC this year. It wasn't really an explosive start to the game, but Mad Lions did pull ahead at like 30 minutes into the game, where Humanoid, he solo killed Abedaga, and honestly, many people joke about Humanoid, but so far I think that he, as an individual, he has had great laning phases, but it's just in team fights that he sometimes blunders, let's call it that way. Bot lane fights from Schalke, they try to kind of punish him back-ish. They try to make sure that they were trading, at least in some lanes, in where they got the gold funnel to. But it was clumsy from Schalke. They tried to engage, but Mad Lions got more kills than they should have gotten from that engage. And this is kind of the theme, I think, throughout this match, where Schalke 04 would try to make plays against Mad Lions, but Mad Lions overall was just a little bit cleaner. That said, Schalke did try to fight back. They got kills in return, but it was Mad Lions who recognized, okay, if you're going to get kills, that's fine, but we're going to make plays across the map. It was messy, but Mad Lions was definitely the more stable factor. And I think that Mad Lions, as we saw in the summer split, when the things line up, they are excellent at team fighting. And maybe one of the best teams in the LEC at doing so. G2 and Rogue are obviously very good as well, but Mad Lions is very good at this. And a great example of this was like around the 23-minute mark, they engaged in a fight that is just worth highlighting.
Mad Lions has come, Flash has come up. It's going to be a bit difficult for them to actually dive on T1 again, because he does have the stopwatch. Kaiser trying to look for the ult, but Lim is re-engaging it. The TP's coming in.
TP on the side. Broken Blade doesn't have too much of the rage bar stacked up. They're going to look to retreat, but Gilius is going in anyway. The entire team is collapsing. Shockwave does manage to hit about a decade. Karzi spinning on the backside, dashing through, looking for the reset. Style rank what you have to watch. But Neon and Broken Blade uncontested. Keep your eyes on that Meganar. Where's it going to go? Unstoppable Olaf, but he is going to get shredded down by Neon. It's a split fight, but for now, Mad are winning. They need to get out now, though. If they extend this fight any longer, Broken Blade will find kills, and he'll turn it to flash forward. The wall up into 2, but now Kaiser with the re-engage. Neon off to the side. Look at that chase damage.
Mad Lions did look so much better compared to their previous games where they were a bit more flippy. They looked like they were very much on the same page. And in firm control, they closed out the game. Whereas for Schalke and Alfear, obviously a tough 0-2 weekend. But it happens, I suppose, after 4 wins. Getting 2 losses, it sucks. But still a pretty decent showing from them in the first half. Then we had XL vs Fnatic as the 4th match of the day. It was supposed to be. And yeah, I say supposed because if you have not watched the broadcast, I'm going to skip past the first 30 minutes of this game. Because even though Fnatic was in firm control of the game, they, I think their players, the broadcast hadn't caught up yet, obviously because they play with like a 10-minute delay. But they were at like getting a Baron and they already had Ocean Soul. For them was 33 minutes into the game when a bug was reported with Samira. She died in her ult animation with the Guardian Angel active, but instead of her ult being deactivated because, you know, she died, it kept on going on while she was being resurrected. And this bug was attempted to be chrono braked, I suppose. Chrono broke. I'm not sure what the correct past tense is, but basically what happens is when a bug is reported, Riot investigates it and tries to set the game back a few minutes so the players can omit the bug and play on from there. Unfortunately, after 1 hour of a pause, they weren't able to do so. Their tool to be able to rewind the game did not work. Obviously, an incredibly stressful situation for everybody involved. And what the deal is then is that the game has to be remade. Unless there are specific conditions in which it's very clear that Fnatic is at such a huge advantage that it would be impossible for XL to win. But unfortunately, those requirements were not met. So in that case, unfortunately for Fnatic, I guess, but also for everybody involved, because it was just an incredibly stressful situation. Anyway, in that case, it had to be remade, which felt incredibly sour, obviously, for Fnatic, because it was almost guaranteed that they would win the game. But the LEC has to set some parameters by which they can measure when the game has to be remade and when it's an admin called victory for one of the teams. So that was obviously a very disappointing situation for everybody, for the broadcast, for XL, because they had to replay an entire game as well, and for Fnatic because they were just almost guaranteed to win this game. I'll say it again, it felt very bad. So yeah, and then that game was pushed until after the match of the week because they wanted to give the players more time to prepare. So then we get to the match of the week, which was G2 versus Rogue, the 2 top teams in the LEC, quite undoubtedly so far, with both teams just playing very well. And Rogue tried a classic Rogue composition with a bit more scaling, with a weird twist. They put Hans Sama on a Vayne, which is obviously a champion that's great against tanks, but also once it gets to 5 items, if you get to that point, it just obliterates everything. And G2 had a bit more of a strange composition where they would punish the 1v1s very well if they got them, but in team fights, they weren't as strong, and they also needed a lot of early game advantages in order to be able to close out the game and get their champions to a level where if a team fight would occur, they could do something back. Now, G2 did get that early game very well. They were 4-1 in 15 minutes, but Rogue did get some Drake, so it definitely wasn't lost yet. Hansama sitting at a 1-2 KD was pretty bad though. He felt a bit more confident one time where he just rolled back in to get a kill on Mickey, but it wasn't really worth it because he died and Reckless stayed alive, so the AD carry obviously far more important to stay alive. G2 did apply a lot of pressure. They kept getting good picks, but Rogue was never completely out of the match. And this is, I think, just something that's very notable. It was an incredible match overall. Both teams playing so well. And even though G2 was like at inhibitor turrets so early, relatively speaking, Rogue still managed to push them out, still knew exactly when and where to go for the objectives, still pushed out the wave, still engaged in the team fight, still held in there because they knew that if the game went on long enough, they would absolutely win. And I think this match is incredibly difficult to summarize. It was absolutely amazing. This may be the best of one of the LEC split already. But I guess the most important fight, or a very important fight, where you could just see both teams kind of what the tone of the game was 28 minutes into the game.
I guess, and in this Renekton, so Hans. Wouldn't directly engage on Larson.
Isolating Larson. Larson getting knocked down so incredibly low. Look at the flash, look at the auto, the shutdown. Larson caught sleeping. The immediate start to the fight. Caps now looking for the re-engage. Inspired gonna try to make him go sleepy. He's gonna catch two, but the stun still comes through. The input buffer from Mickey X is flawless. The double kill now from Wonder. Rogue on the retreat. G2 finally found their opening. They found their opportunity. They can set their sights on the Baron.
Off the back of this, G2 did get a Baron. Obviously, that allows them to pressure the lanes a lot more, but it was still not over at all. Rogue climbed back into the game with kills. They got close to evening things up. They got a Mountain Drake, and all this in spite of their base being almost entirely open. I think they had 2 inhibitors lost, and the third one is almost going down. So very impressive from Rogue to see how they were still able to hold on, still found the exact windows they needed to hold on to the game. Now, I can go so long about this game, and I think I already have quite a bit, but in the end, it was one of the best of ones I have seen. And if you watch any game so far in the split, I would absolutely recommend watching this one, because these two are the strongest team at the moment in the LEC. Both teams put up a great fight. For G2, they eventually did manage to close out the game after, I think it was almost 15 minutes long, this game. But it was just incredible overall, with great play from so many players on both rosters. I think Wunder in the top lane played exceptionally well on the Quinn, but I have to say that also Trimby, who was playing a Gragas and obviously so far in the split has not looked exceptional so far. But in this game he played so incredibly well and helped Rogue in so many ways to stay into the game. So absolutely do recommend watching this match, if anything at all. Then we got to XL vs Fnatic as the 6th match-ish of the day. And it was, obviously everybody was very exhausted. The viewers were, the broadcast was, the players were probably, but Fnatic wanted to go to bed early. They were absolutely set on getting revenge for, I'm not going to say being stolen of a game, being robbed of a game is the correct expression, but they were absolutely out for blood. They started very aggressively. Hylissang was playing like a madman, just in the face of Excel, not afraid to die and absolutely on fire. And Riot had disabled Samira buying a Guardian Angel. She was not allowed to. Upset had again the Samira. But what was really funny is that he just still dominated. He was still playing incredibly well, and Fnatic just was the better team in this game. And I think that I'm not sure how much the pause affected them, but obviously for the XL players who have 2 rookies on the team, something like this can be extra exhausting. Whereas Fnatic only has veteran players, so maybe they pull through it a bit better. Still, I have to say that Fnatic looks much better than XL. XL didn't play super poorly necessarily, but they just weren't able to match the power that Fnatic brought to the game. It was just too much. Unfortunately for Bwipo, who started off super well, and Niski as well, in the first time this game was played on the day. They weren't having the game of their lives, but thankfully for them, Selfmade, Upset, and Hillesing were stepping up, and later into the game, Niski was stepping up as well, more as well. So Fnatic, pretty comfortable victory for them in the end. I think a very funny moment was a bit of BM from Selfmade, where he bought as Lilia a Guardian Angel. Now, obviously, that doesn't give any ability power, it just gives you armor and revives you, which is an item you never buy on Lilia, but he was just poking some fun at the fact that Samira was not allowed to buy it. So, yeah, Fnatic, very impressive from them to see that they were able to keep their mental in check, even though they obviously were heavily affected by the decision that was made to remake the game. And I think that overall this was a very good weekend of Fnatic, where you could see that, okay, this team is getting on track more, this team is finding their footing, they're playing more aggressively against all the teams, and whereas previously they would find more over-aggression, now they managed to reel it back in a bit more. And yeah, I was very happily pleased with their performance overall. And with that, we come at the end of the 4th week, and now it's time to take a look at the standings and see how everything is shaping up. G2 stands at the top together with Rogue at a 7-2 score, both teams looking incredibly impressive. Fnatic is now at a 3rd position, they're climbing their way back up into the standings after a rocky start to the split. Then we have 3 teams at 4th place in a shared position: Mad Lions, Schalke 04, and XL Esports. Then 7th is SK Gaming, who close out the first half of the split with a 4-5 score. Misfits is in 8th place with 3-6. Then we have Astralis at 2-7. And last is Vitality with a 1-8 score. So now let's go over the teams in general and share some thoughts on how they've been doing so far. I think G2 looked incredibly well this weekend. I have to say that obviously their match against Misfits was a bit scrappy, but it's going to be G2. Sometimes they need to have a bit more fun in their game to prevent them from going all too serious and being stuck on something in their mind. So they had a bit more fun. I'm not worried about this team. I think they're absolutely and unequivocally the best team in the LEC at the moment, but Rogue follows them incredibly closely. I think that Rogue in general is maybe just the 2nd best team at the end of the split, and I would not mind at all if G2 and Rogue play the best of 5, even though it probably lose the few. Harris, I have remaining on my head that when they played, because their game this weekend was incredibly stressful, they have played super well. So Rogue has looked incredibly strong. Fnatic, I'm very positive about. I still think that they need more consistency from all of their players if they want to be able to get to that Fnatic top 2 position that they've always had. And then with this roster, but you have to admit that so far, after this week, especially, they look far more consistent. They needed time, as I said earlier, to find that footing in how to play aggressively well. But they are doing it now. I think that you could see that in their approach, the bot lane is working well together. I still think their mid laner, Niski, who was heavily criticized heading into the game, has been performing pretty solidly. Bwipo is maybe a bit more flippy, where obviously you had that Riven game where he played super well, but then he played later on a Volibear and he wasn't playing as well. But it seems like overall Fnatic is coming together more, and that's obviously a very healthy thing to see, because the more teams are able to compete for top spot, the better it is for the league's quality in general. Then we have Mad Lions. Yeah, I mean, it's still an inconsistent team. You could see that this weekend they were playing better, especially in their match against Schalke 04. But there's still a lot to work on with the team. You could see that in their dynamics, things are sometimes a bit... there's friction, and I'm not going to say like on a personal level, but in their ideas of how they want to do the game, you can see that it isn't smooth as it was in the summer split yet. And obviously that is after 2 splits already, and they're just like halfway through 1 split with 2 new players. So give them a bit more time. I'm still positive about this team's potential, because as we saw against Schalke 04, when they are in that spot, they can play very well, and especially their team fighting is really good. But I would say that at the moment, they're very much deserving of where they are with like almost as many wins as they have losses. So yeah, then we have Schalke 04. Bit disappointed, obviously, them going 0-2 after going 4-0 in the weeks prior. So that was a bit of a bummer. And I do think, what to say about Schalke 04? Maybe they just needed like a weekend of being off to reestablish where they are as a team and where they want to go to. But as I said, I think against Astralis they played overconfidently, so that needs to be toned down a bit more. And I think they just need to be a bit more on a better communication level with each other if they want to be able to beat the other teams consistently. Because you could see that when they played against G2 and Rogue, which are the teams that they beat, the top two teams they both have beaten, right? Then they were absolutely on point. They knew exactly how to approach it. But then they play somebody like Astralis, and all of a sudden they are trying to have that level of comfort that only a team such as G2 can allow themselves. And it just doesn't work. So I think just keep focused that every match counts for them as well. And try to get in the best playoffs position as possible. Then we have XL. 5-4 for XL, which is a team with 2 rookies and who hasn't made any playoff appearance so far. I think that's really promising. I'm very happy to see that Kreis is stepping up more as a carry in the team. He's playing very well, especially compared to his summer split performance. He's playing super good. And I think that when you look at XL overall, this is a team that's just going to need time to grow to its full potential, where I'm not sure if they're going to be able to contest for the top in the LEC. But they absolutely could make it to a top 5 maybe if they keep on developing at the rate they're developing at the moment. Then we have SK Gaming. Still too inconsistent, obviously, from them. I think sometimes they have moments of brilliance. I think Blue in the mid lane, as I mentioned earlier, has not been performing too well overall. But then you have Tinks and Treats, who have been playing pretty well. And especially Treats have been performing as being one of the better supports in the LEC. Genox in the top lane is not super, not horrible. It's just he's there and he's pretty stable. But and in the bot lane you have Jeskla, not Jeskla, you have Jezu. And yeah, I mean the guy is not gonna like super carry the team. As I said earlier, I think when he is online and he is in the zone and he has the perfect game, he is a very good AD carry. But I think mostly right now what SK Gaming needs to do is find a direction this team wants to go in terms of their play. I think they're maybe too much focused on trying everything at the moment rather than trying to optimize their team synergy first by playing a style that's a pretty solid strategy to win, such as maybe drive for scaling and team fighting, such as Rogue is doing, and going from there. But overall, SK Gaming, I think that for a team with 4 rookies on their roster, they're doing pretty well. Misfits, good to see them win this weekend, because I think that this roster showed once again that they have a lot of potential. But 3-6 is just bad, right? I don't really know what to say about Misfits heading into the split. I thought they would hover around. I think I said 8th or 7th. I predicted them to be with their multi-man roster, keeping them down, because it adds a lot of stress to the players who might fear being swapped out for their substitutions. I'm not sure if that's the case at the moment, but the team, if SK Gaming is struggling to find a direction in their game and it's only online a few times, then Misfits is really, it doesn't have a direction. So yeah, disappointing to see for them, obviously, and I hope for them that they are able to turn the ship around, because they have some very high quality players once they're in their comfort zone. So who knows what will happen in the second half of the split. Then we have Astralis. I have to say that I was pretty disappointed in that Astralis was not able to win against Misfits. If anything, if you want to get to the playoff spot, you have to win matches against other bottom tier teams in the LEC, and they were unable to do so. And that's just really disappointing, especially after the progress that they've made. Still, they've made some progress, which is a sign of life, but they're in 9th place now, and I think that's very well where they deserve to be if you look at their performance overall, being unable to close out games, being good one moment but absolutely trash in the next game and not doing anything. So that team feels like it just needs a kick under their butt. Maybe with Maggie Felix obviously coming in as a new player, they will be able to do so, but that's going to take extra time to develop, and I'm skeptical whether they will be able to make it work in this split still. Vitality in last place, I've said it before, it's just really bad. When they announced the replacement of Comp, as I said in my preview, with Groundshot, I was really skeptical. Because I don't think Comp was the problem. Maybe behind the scenes in terms of personalities he was. We don't have insight on that, so that's just pure speculation, and no conclusion can be drawn from this, right? But yeah, Vitality, I don't know. Their mid lane and Militia is failing to show up. Skeens is failing to show up. Groundshot needs time to work in its synergy, so I'll give the team some benefit there that maybe they are able to step it up a little bit after some time, but it looks very hopeless for them at the moment. Then let's take a look at the LEC SuperFantasy lobby that I created, which you can still join via the link in the description below. At the halfway point, we are now in the LEC, so there's still time for you to climb back up, and even if you don't, then you again get a shout out on my Twitter for being in the daily top 10 if you make it there. So we have Witta in a 2371 lead, just 19 points ahead though of Stepan with 2352 points. Then we have Loco X at 2222 points. I follow in 4th place with 2178 points. Lucky Reed has 2053 points. Bene in 6th place with 2024. Then we have Akun at 1994 points. Noodles in 8th place with 1944. Faramir in 9th spot with 1950 points. And in 10th place at the moment is Goldfire 432, who has 1904 points. So those were my recaps of the LEC Spring Split Week 4. Let me know in the comments below what highlights were to you. I'm very curious to hear what you thought of the matches, and if you also lost a few hairs during G2 versus Fnatic. Not G2 versus Fnatic, G2 versus Rogue, obviously. But let me know what highlights were for you, what standout moments were to you. I will be posting more content on my YouTube this week. I will have a bit fewer YouTube interviews than usual, but I have another video coming out to fill that gap a bit. But you can also read some interview articles I will do, so follow my Twitter if you want to stay tuned with article interviews I do, because I have 3 of them coming out this week. Then if you do enjoy my content, consider liking and subscribing. It really helps me as a channel, obviously still small at the moment, but trying to provide enough content for the LEC so everybody can follow all the storylines with all the players. So if you do enjoy it, please consider liking and subscribing. I'll say it once again, because fuck it, why not? Sell out, right? And I'll see you guys at least on Thursday again with my LEC preview for week 5. So stay tuned for more content.